Compliment me more.
What, yeah, how have you gotten better at taking compliments? That was hard for you.
So being able to, so like people, I think if you're from Chinese culture, like taking compliment was never an easy thing. Like you feel embarrassed and you feel like you're forcing the other person to compliment you, which is a lose-lose situation. So the best strategy of being in a Chinese culture relationship is don't compliment anyone. don't criticize them. The worst thing you can do is criticize them or compliment in public, and then you make them have to deflect your compliments. You're like a worst friend a person can have. Just like secretly judge them. It's totally fine. So that's where I'm coming from. And I think to be able to 100% comfortably accept compliment, you have to be sure of your own existence too. You have to be believing yourself as a person who deserves to be loved and capable of loving other people. And it wouldn't be possible without a community that 100% accept who you are. I'm building you a role to introduce rite of passage.
Shout out David Perell, who I think has created one of the coolest things, and I will forever be a volunteer promoter of this course because I think he's created something special. I think an interesting way to talk about rite of passage is he gave you a lens to take compliments. Their framework, and David and his team, the framework for how they think about feedback. And just stepping back, it's so cool to have something like rite of passage in the world because it sort of takes a lot of the lessons I don't know how to communicate to somebody else. I think I just pick up a lot of this stuff intuitively. And they've created so many frameworks, and to me, I think it's an onboard onto this generous, creative internet entrepreneurial US culture. It's sort of a great way to emigrate into the US culture no matter where you're from. How did that experience go for you?
Mm-hmm.
You joined this was 6 months after moving to the US in Austin.
4 months.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was, you almost didn't join. You were scared too.
Yeah, I was so scared when I had the opportunity to join Rite of Passage. I remember we were sitting in our apartment in East Austin, and Paul was sitting on the sofa, and I was half lying on the sofa and then half rolling on the ground. I was I don't want to join. What am I doing? I'm going to speak English with other English creators. I'm just going to shame myself to hell if I join this course. But that's what my brain was telling me. But my gut was telling me you better join this course.
I knew you were going to join.
Well, I mean, I want to join because I don't want to disappoint David. And that's a very Chinese perspective now I think of too. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares if I join or not?
Yeah, I remember you saying this, because you had talked to them, you had a conversation about joining their team, and it probably wasn't the right time on your journey to do something
in the
like
right
that.
Position.
But yeah, you were David will be so insulted if I don't. I'm I don't think David's going to spend any time thinking about this.
Wait, I didn't tell you something that I can tell you now.
What?
So I think a lot of times when you introduce me freelance opportunity, I got scared, not because I feel I'm incapable of doing it, but because I feel if I fail, then I will bring you so much shame.
But I don't care.
Yeah, and now I think I probably doesn't carry it. This shame thing is so, this shame coming from Chinese culture, it's so ingrained in me.
Yeah, I think the default assumption here is everyone, we were talking about this the other day, everyone sort of takes care of themselves. So if you give someone advice, you expect them to do what's best for them. You don't give someone advice as a weight over their entire life, and if they screw up 10 years from now, it's all your fault and you are shamed for this forever. I think that's one of the good things about US culture. It's very loose and nobody expects what you say to be a weight over them. So more about the course. You get in the course. You were like terrified to start sharing your ideas, but then you share, you publish, and you get helpful feedback from people you like put on a pedestal. You've written about this. I'll link up to your article, which is awesome. But you put these people on a pedestal. Oh, they're so much better than me. They give you amazing feedback, and you had to deal with this cognitive dissonance of like, maybe I am pretty good.
I think let's give the listener more context about Rite of Passage. So Rite of Passage is a 5-week intense online writing course. It's a core-based course, meaning that you will be with a group of people.
Hundreds of people.
You'll be with hundreds of people. In my cohort, we have 300 people. And then the way they structure the course is Monday, you have to publish a draft of something you write about. And then you receive feedback from the whole community. And then on Wednesday, you publish your final stuff. And then so I think like an organization is not equal to a community. An organization is you don't have to be vulnerable. You can like go to a meetup. Meetup.com meetup, and then just like doesn't have to share anything vulnerable, and then just leave the group anytime. You don't feel belonging. There's nothing invested. You're not emotionally invested. You don't feel like they 100% accept you. But in Rite of Passage, it's like the way they structure their mentor session, they structure their prompt, just naturally make you feel like you want to share the vulnerable stuff of you.
Yeah, it's like permission to be
vulnerable.
Yeah,
permission to me to be you.
They do a really impressive job of like creating the container for that, a safe space.
And I think like that's something that I never experienced. Not even in Taiwan. I never experienced in the States, and never experienced that in Taiwan. And like being able to show the vulnerable part of me and still see, like, share with imperfect English and still be celebrated and be accepted as friends, and then just seeing how the whole community is cheering for you is the first time I realized, like, oh wow, like I can still be the weird self. Like I don't have to be the corporate self to be a part of a really cool community. That was mind-blowing for me.
Yeah. So what do you think? I think it's an interesting community. It sort of like creates status for being brave and being vulnerable and
being
actually
weird
and shipping, which you did. And I think it was hard for you to ship those articles, but they sort of unlocked something in you. I saw after that, like that really changed your behavior. And you started like, I think you, for the first time, like you'd always be like, I can't make money. And there's like, well, you don't really go after anything like freelancing. But after that, you were like very open to opportunities. I had a friend, Will Bachman, who like had this opportunity for like a Chinese speaker, and you were like freaked out, but you're like, screw it, I'm all in, I'm going for it. And that kind of like opened the door to, oh, maybe freelancing could be a thing.
I think because the way I feel like I can be vulnerable in this community, I go all out. Like I don't have to hide certain part of myself. I don't think that my English will be a problem when I'm communicating with people. So I started hosting events within the community, and the act of like being just a student to an event host is such a huge empowerment.
Yeah.
For people like me who are like from other countries and then studying, living in the States, and so like the experience of like working with other creators and hosting stuff like drawing challenge, it's such a simple act, but it made me feel so empowered and made me feel like, oh wait, I'm capable of doing stuff with other people in the States too. So you encouraged me to put out a Twitter thread about what I was doing before. And I think like a huge reason, so like Rite of Passage is not just a writing course. It teaches you everything about being a creator on a creative journey. So one thing that Dave talked about is like personal monopoly. I call it my personal thriving kingdom. Basically, the weird wonky part of you could be your real strength. And for me, like when I was applying for corporate job, like I always have to think about like, okay, how do I play down this curious podcast painting side of me to fit into their narrative? But now I realize that actually on the internet, people still value this weird, like these all parts of me. So I can just put out I call it an unconventional resume on my website, and knowing that there will be other creators who really value these different weird skills I have or curiosity I have. And so like that's why like I was willing to put out a Twitter thread without feeling that I have to hide part of me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And people loved it. Like you've had a lot of people reaching out to you based on that.
Mm-hmm. But that you were talking about the first thread? Or the current one?
I mean, it's the same webpage, right? And you keep updating it. You just keep putting everything you're doing on there, and you're not trying to hide or fit into a box.
Yeah, what I realized is like also after I got my first few freelance experiences, I know I'm not a freelancer who has been like going on this like huge scale project or been like 20 years of freelance experience, but I have some experiences. I have something I learned when I doing that thread. At first I was like, I have to be an expert because like I think there is a certain way of talking on Twitter, like you're offering and here's what I learned, here's what you can get from me. It's a very authoritative voice. So I'm
very male energy on Twitter.
Yeah. And so I was like, I don't want to be like that because like I'm still learning on my freelance journey. So like Paul was telling me what I can write, but I write my own version. Like I want to write a vulnerable version, but still tell people that I learned something. I want to write something that is real Angie. So if they see it, they won't feel like. So if they see it and they still contact me, that means that they like my energy, they like my way of approaching the world and the things. And then so I was kind of surprised when I got lots of contacts after I put out the thread. And I think like the thing about being freelancing, at least is what I learned now, is like creative people have all sorts of ideas of leveling out their stuff, but they don't have a recruiter to like help them post something, a position on like, I don't know, like LinkedIn.com or Indeed.com. And so like but if they see someone that is pop up on the internet, on the Twitter, that they might have a good vibe working with, then they are willing to try. So it's really just when you told me that you gotta put yourself out there, was like bullshit. But now I tell my friend, you gotta put yourself out there. Give me a Twitter thread. I hope you share it.
If you like that clip, you can click somewhere up around here for the full episode. And don't forget to subscribe to get alerts for full episodes and clips of the Pathless Path video podcast.